Welcome everyone to the fourth weekly video for the month of April 2021. And being the fourth weekly video, this is the last weekly video for the month, that makes this Gann week. So I thought it might be apropos to go ahead and go to Tunnel Through the Air quickly to point a couple things out that maybe you find interesting and or helpful in some form or fashion. So let's go ahead and bring Tunnel Through the Air up here. And I will go to page 21. All right, page 21 of Tunnel Through the Air. This is the page where the very first letter between Robert and Marie shows up in the entire book. Actually, this is the very first letter of anybody in the book right here. The first time the letter shows up, any letters. And if you really think about it, if you're just reading this book for entertainment, the letters that go back and forth and the poems are what make this book less than enjoyable. But interestingly enough, the letters and the poems are some of the most important parts of the book. Now in this letter, let's go ahead and read it really quickly. Being the first one that shows up here on page 21, this letter might have more importance than would initially be placed on it. It says, "Dear Marie, you probably remember several weeks ago when I was introduced to you in church, the sermon that the minister preached and his text from St. Paul, where he said the greatest thing in the world is love. I agree with St. Paul. That is why I'm writing to you. I liked you the first time I met you, and every time I have seen you since, I have liked you more. Now that I know I love you so much, I feel that I must tell you. I hope that you are going to love me someday. Your friend, Robert." That's a pretty forward letter right there. So let's look at this. This is page 21. This is the first time that a letter shows up, right? And he makes a reference to, "I liked you the first time I met you." So there's a bit of a consistency right there. Now on top of that, let's go backwards a little bit, and we see that page 21 shows up in chapter number 3 of Tunnel Through the Air. And of course, 21 is 3 times 7. So let's look at this a little bit. It says, "In the spring of 1921, Robert began to make greater progress in his studies, which greatly encouraged his chum, Walter Kenilworth. Robert would study and read early and late. Walter would often call on him in his room and find him there deeply engrossed, reading the Bible and puzzling over the interpretations of the meanings of many parts of the scriptures." So this is the spring of 1921, and it says, "On Sunday, in the early part of June, Robert and Walter went to church, and the minister took from his text 1 Corinthians 13:2. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have no charity, I am nothing." Then the minister read from the 7th verse. And then the minister read from the 11th verse, and then the minister read more from the 13th verse. So if we look at this, it says in the spring of 1921, and then it further distills it down to one Sunday in the early part of June, Robert and Walter went to church. So if we bring up the astrolog program here, we can go back to 1921 and then go to the early part of June. And remember that he was in church, so it was a Sunday. And the most likely culprit right here is June 5th, Sunday. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then it goes on further, and he talks about his sermon right there. And then here on page 20, it says that Robert, his mind turned toward the many beautiful girls that he used to meet in Sunday school, and those who were in his class. Robert's chum Walter had already had a puppy love affair in school with the girl by the name of Caroline Oglethorpe. Robert had laughed at Walter about this and thought it was all foolishness, but now he began to think that maybe there was something more to love than what he had heretofore believed it to be. Walter Kenilworth's family, being one of the most wealthy and prominent in Texarkana, they were at all the social functions at which Robert met all the younger set in the city. This paragraph right here is very important. This actually gives a lot of information. And for the people who have been taking the monthly videos, the monthly video membership, this is extremely important and should be very helpful to you right here. Even if you haven't been taking that course, this right here is very, very helpful right here. Okay, so we have a couple weeks later, after that June 5th Sunday, that this is happening. A few weeks after the minister had preached this sermon on charity and love, Robert was in church one morning, and after Sunday school was talking with Caroline Oglethorpe, and with her was her chum Marie Stanton. Walter introduced Robert to Marie. Okay, that's pretty important. Marie was the daughter of a wealthy and prominent family. And then it goes on to talk more. Of course, you can go ahead and read that. Okay, so now let's go to page 250 of this book. And I'll bet you can figure out why we're going to page 250. 249 and 250, because this is where chapter number 21 starts. Okay, it says right here, Robert was very much encouraged by this letter because he had great confidence in astrology and in this man's ability. So right there's a connection, right? Chapter 21 starts and talks immediately about a letter, and on page 21 is the first letter that's in this book. Now, I want to do one other thing before I end this video. All right, let's count the number of paragraphs in chapter 21. There's 1 paragraph, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and that's the last one. So there are 21 paragraphs in chapter 21. And interestingly enough, this starts on page 250, and we have the 110-year-old Aunt Silly. All right, so this is the end of this particular video. I hope it's helpful in some form or fashion to pique your interest here or there, and I will talk to you in next week's video.